Hey, what's up? It's Jake from venv DevOps, and we are going to move to section 1.5. We just went over virtual environments, and now I'm going to show you how to install third-party libraries in a virtual environment. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to make a directory called my project, and I'm going to go into that directory, cd my project. And then inside of here, I'm going to make a virtual environment. So I'm going to say Python, use the module virtual env, and let's make one called LPP3D. So I'm just going to make this virtual environment really quick. You're going to see a bunch of new files get created inside of here, include a lib and a scripts directory. And we want to use this virtual environment. So if you remember from my last video, we need to go into the, let me go into the here and then into scripts, and then yeah, there we go. So one thing I didn't cover too much in the last one, and I wanted to make sure I went over this, is if you look at this activate and deactivate, you'll notice that when you run activate, there's an error, right? Activate, it says command not found. If you run deactivate, it works just fine. So why is that? Well, when you activate a virtual environment, you're setting up virtual environment variables, such as paths, which is the most important part, and other things. And in order to do that, it has to be sourced. So you remember me going through some sourcing activities in previous videos. And so this is really where this concept becomes important. So now if I run /active, come on now, activate. Oh, you know why? I need to be in PowerShell. There we go. Let's see. We were in my project. I was in a bash terminal, if you're wondering why that didn't work and what I'm switching to. And then go into my here and then into scripts. Yeah, so if I run activate, you can see it doesn't work, right? It says it's not recognized. We need to source it. So it says here, the command activate was not found, but does exist in the current location. PowerShell does not load commands from the current location by default. If you trust this command instead, source it here with /. So if I do /activate, it's going to source it, and now you can see we're in our new virtual environment. So now that I'm in my new virtual environment, let's take a look at what I have inside of here. And let me just go back into here. All right, so I've got an include, I've got a lib, and I've got a scripts. So what I'm going to do here is, let me do a LSA. Fine. Let me go to back to bash. LSA. All right, so nothing hidden, looks good. All right, so in here, we need to look at our bin. I'm going to stay in PowerShell just so we're being consistent. So let me look at the lib first. All right, so I have site packages. That's all I have on there. So let's say I want to make a file, right? A requirements file, for example. So let me go back here. I'm just going to cat a requirements.txt file. Fine. Let me put my Linux hat on. Let me just touch requirements.txt. There it is. And then let's vi or vim this sucker. And inside of here, I'm just going to say I want Django. So Django, what version? I want it to be exactly 3.1.7. And let's say I want requests, because I'm going to use the requests library. And I want 2.25.1. All right, let's go ahead and save this sucker. That looks good. So now I can install using the pip module. I can pip install our requirements.txt, and it's just going to install what's in the requirements file. Could not install packages due to OS error, cannot find SQL format. SQL format, you're using pip version 24. Oh, I need to upgrade pip. Let me do that real quick. Python module pip install upgrade yourself. Let's see. Let me open PowerShell as an administrator and then move this over here. Python-m, make sure the whole thing, we're in a virtual environment, but I need to upgrade this. Python-m pip install upgrade pip. Okay, so now I'm on 2204. All right, so now that I'm in here, what we need to do is, first thing we need to do is you need to make sure we're in our actual virtual environment. So in here, I'm in my virtual environment, and I have my requirements file. So now I should be able to do pip install -r requirements, and hopefully that pip upgrade took care of everything else. So notice that we're installing all this, right? And we're doing this, yeah, see, my pip version isn't updated in here. So this is perfect. So you'll see that on my computer, I'm using, if I just type pip, pip is installed, right? Pip dash version. Version. I'm on 2204. Now, I did not upgrade it inside my virtual environment. I'm on version 21.2.4. So this is a very good example. And if you don't want your application to break, and this is much like how containers work, right, with Docker and stuff like that, is you want everything to be completely independent of each other. So now inside of my environment, I would have to do this in an elevated terminal because I don't have an elevated terminal open in here. So if I went to C users, myself, repos, my project, name of this thing, and now I have requirements. If I went into scripts and I just said, hey, /activate, and I'm in here now, and I'm in an elevated terminal. If I went back and I just said, hey, pip install -r requirements, it says, okay, we're installed, but you need this upgraded version of pip, right? So if I do pip install, Python module pip install upgrade pip, it's going to find this, it's going to uninstall 21.2, and it's going to successfully install 2204 inside my virtual environment. So now if I do activate, you're going to see, well, I'm not in the right one, but it's in scripts. It's activated. I didn't get any errors because I'm on the latest version of pip. And if I did a pip -- version, in my virtual environment, I'm now on 2204, and I'm on Python 3.10. So this is a great example of showing you how to install things on your computer and how it doesn't change your virtual environment, and how I can install stuff in my virtual environment and it's not installed on my computer. So if that makes sense. Yeah, but that's pretty much it. So you can install pretty much whatever you want and just have a nice, easy, like, hey, here are my requirements. Boom. Somebody asks you what version of whatever you're running, you have it all right here. And you can lock in this version so that if there's any updates or upgrades or whatever, that this virtual environment ensures that whatever I do to my computer, if I update my computer, I do Windows update, I do an update with Chocolatey. If you're running on Mac and you do a brew update and it updates your Django, because you have Django installed on your computer, it doesn't update the version of Django in your virtual environment. If you're on Linux and you do a yum update or a sudo apt update or an apt-get or whatever you're doing, Same thing, it'll update it on your computer, but it won't update it in your virtual environment because these are locked into whatever you're doing, and you'd physically have to go activate the virtual environment and then update things um, as you saw fit, or just change the version here and then pip install -r the requirements file, and that will read that requirements file and install all of the requirements listed inside. So, anyways, that's pretty much it. It's we're getting close. We haven't coded anything yet, right? Part of understanding the developer process is understanding how to code in an environment that will be similar to what you're doing in the job. So if you take a Python course, and I know this has taken a ton of them. If you take a Python course and you learn Python, and then you go to a job interview and you do great, and then you get to the job and you just start coding, you're going to end up with all kinds of crazy stuff because you might have a dev environment and a test environment and a quality environment. And if you're doing tests and being like, why does this run on my computer but it doesn't work in QA? And it's because you don't know about virtual environments and that there are different dependencies, then that's not going to work. And that's definitely a thing because prod should always be behind um, your downstream environments, because the whole idea is that if you're trying to upgrade something, you're going to test it in QA before you push it an upgraded version to production. So you should be doing these things regularly and using virtual environments and installing libraries inside of those environments unique to each environment as you see fit. And I could even have this project in here if I wanted to. I named this whatever I named it, right? But if I wanted to, just to give you an example, let me deactivate this. So inside of scripts, let's just run a little deactivate. And no, not that, deactivate. There we go. If I go back to my repos directory and I make a directory called like my app, right? And let's say inside of here, I want a dev and a prod environment. I could say python -m venv and just call this dev and have a dev environment. And I could do the exact same thing and just make a prod if I wanted to. I mean, there's tons of patterns you can use. It's just an example, just so you understand the concept. And if I look at my app, now it's like, hey, I have a dev and a prod. And if I want to work on development, I just go into dev. Let me go back and show you, at least from the command line, so you can see. So I have a dev and a prod. And if I want to go into dev and be like, hey, I'm going to use dev, then I can just go, okay, /scripts /activate. Why are you not in here at cd scripts /activate? So now I'm in dev. You can see it here. And so whatever I do in here will be just exclusive to development. So let's take Django, for example. So if I want to make, in dev, if I want to make a file called requirements here, and I want to say I want Django and I want version 3.1.6, right? And then I'm going to take the same exact requirements file and I'm going to go to prod and make a requirements file. But prod's going to be, prod will be on 3.1.6. Dev will be on 3.1.7 because we're trying to do some testing to use the upgraded version of Django and just make sure it doesn't break our app, right? So in dev, I could say pip install -r requirements, and it's going to install, as you can see, Django 3.1.7. Cool. So I'm going to go ahead and /scripts /deactivate dev. Why does this never work? Probably because of sourcing. Deactivate. So if I go to prod now, I can essentially do the same thing. I can say pip install -r requirements, and you'll see that prod is going to go, hey, I don't even have a version of Django. I don't even recognize that I had that it's even in dev, right? And or we're on my computer, and my computer definitely is like, I don't like this. This doesn't make any sense because I didn't activate it. Notice that? Anybody catch that? I made that error. Active, sorry, /activate. Now we're in prod. So now I should be able to go back to my prod directory, pip install -r requirements. There we go. And you can see inside my virtual environment, prod is on 3.1.6, right? And just to double check, deactivate. I really wish I could tab this out. Deactivate. And just double checking, if I go back to dev, /activate, and I go back to, take a look at what I'm using, I could probably just type Django, django -- version. It wants me to use because it's not running or any of that stuff. All right, so I think you get the idea, but in this case, like if I try to install it again, just so you can see it, I don't want to get too far ahead and do some confusing stuff. So you can see requirement already satisfied, Django 3.1.7. So in this, how I decided to architect or design or set up my directory structure, instead of just making a project and having separate projects with one virtual environment, I actually made an app that has a dev environment and a prod environment, and I can test them individually, completely separate from and isolated from themselves. So if you have any questions, let me know. But if not, we are just about there. And I'm just going to go over our console a little bit, and then we'll start looking at running some scripts.